Welcome back. The purpose of this lab assignment is to enter a C or C++ program using Xcode for the Macintosh and make it work. You can choose either C or C++, and I'm going to provide the code for both of them. All you need to do is to enter the code and make it work. As the course progresses, you will only be given a project definition, and then you have to decide all of the code yourself. This video is presented in 3 parts. Part 1 is to define the project. Part 2 is implement the C or C++ code using Xcode for the Macintosh. And I'll provide detailed instructions on how to do that. You may want to refer back to this video later if you have a question about implementing with Xcode. Part 3 of the project is to document the project and send me a lab report. Project definition. Design a program using C or C++ that does the following. Read the number of hours worked and the pay rate. Compute the pay, including overtime at time and a half, and display the gross pay, but not including taxes or any other deductions. Maybe we can make the project a little bit fancier later and include those. Here is the algorithm. Develop the algorithm in pseudo-code. Pseudo-code is fake code. It's code that's not really in any language, it's more in English. A lot of times the pseudocode is given to the programmer to say, here's how I want the program to work, and then it's up to the programmer to write the code in C, C++, Java, or whatever language is being used. In this Hierarchical Input Process Output chart, also called HIPO chart, we want to define the inputs, in this case it's hours and pay rate, and define the output, gross pay. Once we know the input and the output, then we need to decide how to get from input all the way to the output. So here we're going to read the hours from the keyboard and read the pay rate from the keyboard, determine the number of hours, determine the overtime hours, compute the regular pay, compute the overtime pay, and then compute and display the gross pay. Next, we want to outline what the screen should look like when the program is running. In this case, since we're using a command line interface, only text will be showing up on the screen. Next, convert the algorithm into code. The C and the C++ programs are very similar. The big difference right now at this point is just the input and the output. Right here I have left some square boxes. They're blank spots where the difference will be for the C and the C++. The first one is the include files. There is a slight difference between the C and the C++. The include files help the compiler build the program. The second one is for inputting the data, and the third one is for outputting. Here is a small chart that shows how the C and the C++ input and output routines differ. The C language uses scanf to input from the keyboard, and it uses printf for output. C++ uses cin and cout. Cin for console input and cout for console output. The next part of this lab assignment is to test the program. Since this program can process a paycheck that does not have overtime, like 40 hours or less, and also a paycheck that does have overtime, more than 40 hours, it is important to test both conditions. It's also important to test the program at 40 hours. For example, use these values. If someone worked 39 hours at $20 an hour, they should receive $780. At 40 hours, $800, and at 41 hours, $830. Notice there is an increase because of the 1 hour of overtime. They actually receive $30 an hour for that overtime hour. It's also important to test at 40 hours. Because what would happen if somebody wrote the program so it's less than 40 hours, compute one way. If it's over 40 hours, compute another way. But see, 40 hours is not tested because it's only tested below 40 and above 40. So we need to make sure that we test right at that crossover point also. The last part is to document the project and submit the lab report. I'm going to give you a form that includes most of the stuff already filled in for the lab report. You need to fill in the spots that I've left, and I mark those in red. Here comes part 2 of the video, implementing the project. This is the fun part. Although it may seem difficult to get your first C or C++ program to work using Macintosh Xcode, it becomes much easier after a few times. Since this is the first one, the steps are very detailed. Make sure you follow each of the steps and don't move on to the next step until you've completed the current step. The Xcode system for the Mac was designed for Apple's Objective-C. So there's a few extra steps we have to do in order to make it work with C or C++. Download Xcode if you don't already have it. Install the Command Line Tools component. Verify that you have the C and C++ compilers. If you already have Xcode on your Mac, you don't need to download it again, but you do need to verify that the command line tools GCC, G++, and GDB have been installed. Download Xcode from the Apple website. Apple displays the most current version of Xcode. If you have an older version of OS X like Lion, you need to click the previous versions link to download an older copy of Xcode. After you have installed Xcode, you need to install the command line tools. So launch Xcode. On the main menu, click Preferences, click the Download button, select the Components tab, and install the command line tools, and then relaunch Xcode. You need to verify that G++, GCC, and GDB have been installed. If you're already familiar with Unix-type commands, you are in business. So, to start, launch the terminal window from Tools, and then type ls/user/bin/g*. Be very careful when you're typing in these programs. C and C++ are case sensitive. That means like a capital A and a lowercase a are like totally different characters. Watch the spaces. A lot of times the spaces don't matter, but you can't put a space in the middle of a name. Third thing is you have to really watch where you put the semicolons. A lot of times there's a semicolon at the end of the line, other times there's no semicolon at the end of the line, and we'll cover that in more detail. In the C program, I have a \n to indicate end of line. The backslash is a backslash character, not a / character. In C++, it uses ENDL to indicate end of line. So make sure you type in ENDL, all lowercase. It kind of looks like, and some might look like END1, but it's really ENDL. Last thing is really be careful on the curly braces, the square brackets, and the angle brackets. Make sure you get those typed in correctly. Include a title block at the top of your program that identifies the name of the file, your name and date, version, the inputs and outputs used by the program. C-style comments start with a /* and end with a */. You can use C-style comments in C++ code also. The C++ style comments start with a // and stop at the end of the line. The C++ style comments cannot cover multiple lines. Most of the modern C compilers will also accept C++ style comments. The compiler uses header files that are read into your program with the #include statement. You may need to include multiple header files depending on which routines you use in your program. The C language uses #include open angle bracket stdio.h close angle bracket. That's stdio.h. Just spell it out. It stands for standard I/O. Don't say studio or somebody's going to think you're making movies. In C++, we need to include, well, good old Microsoft has that quote stdafx.h close quote. And that's only for Microsoft and a lot of the versions of Microsoft. If you're using some other compiler, don't put that in or your compiler is going to get confused. The next one is #include open angle bracket IO stream close angle bracket. That stands for input output stream. I'm also using #include IO manip. And that one is so I can do the number of digits past the decimal place. Last thing is using namespace std semicolon. This is the only place on this so far that I have the semicolon. Enter and run the program. The code for the program is located on the Moodle class website. From the main Xcode menu, click Product, then Run. You can also use Command R. If there were any typing errors, fix them and go back and try again. When the program runs, now you're the user instead of the programmer. The user input and output is in the All Output window. It is important that you click in this window before inputting your data, such as hours worked and pay rate. If the code frame is active instead of the All Output frame, you will be modifying your code instead of inputting data into the program. Verify that the program produces correct results with and without overtime. Maybe somebody, when they're typing in a program, they said, do one thing if it's less than 40, compute the overtime if it's over 40, but maybe they didn't even figure 40 because they had below and above, but you need to check right at that crossover point also. The next part of the project is documentation and a lab report. I provided a text document, which most of it is already filled in. All you have to do is change the parts that are in red. It should be a 2-page document. For the lab report, at the top, put down your name and the date and the compiler that you used. Microsoft, Apple, whatever you used. This part's already filled in for you. I want to see the actual values that showed up on the screen, so type those in when you ran the program. Let me know what problems you had when you were creating the program and how you overcame them. Take a picture of the screen. There's instructions here for both Mac and PC on how you can get a screen capture and then paste it into the lab report. On the second page, copy and paste your the code that you used. Don't copy and paste mine. I want to see what you used. When you've completed your lab report, submit it using Moodle. All the lab assignments should be submitted using Moodle. Make sure that you click the correct link on the class Moodle page for your assignment. Select the file you want to upload, click the upload button, and verify that it was sent. This is important. You need to find the correct submit link. Each assignment is going to have a submit link, so make sure you click the right one. Now, if you end up clicking the wrong one, it will either end up in the wrong folder or it could accidentally replace some of your previously submitted work. Moodle will load a new screen with instructions, a due date, and the Add Submission button. Verify that you'll be submitting your report to the correct location, then click Add Submission button. Moodle then displays the File Submission screen. You can either use the mouse and drag your completed lab report on top of the big blue arrow. That works with most browsers. Or if you have a problem, click the Files link and find the file on your computer. After you've selected the file, click the Save Changes button. Verify that your file was uploaded. If your file name shows here, then the instructor can see the file. If you want to view the status of your submission, go back to Submit Your Report again, and then you can see what the status is. If you want to update and resubmit your lab report before it's been graded, click the Edit Submissions button. Your old submissions will be deleted and replaced with the updated version. Congratulations on completing your first C or C++ program. You can always refer back to this lab assignment for instructions on how to use the C compiler or use Moodle to submit your work. So, good work and have fun.